So if you checked my community tab, you would know already that I've decided that leading up to August 10th, which is their leave for Vegas, I am just going to be doing podcast style videos, one a day, maybe a few more, but we'll see. But definitely it's looking like one a day of these podcast style videos. It's about various topics, again, leading up to Summer League. And after I get back from Summer League on the 14th, I will be going back to doing more edited videos, but this is the first of a few that you'll see over the next few days leading up again to that day I do leave. Obviously, you read the title of this video. This video is about Paolo Banchero, Paolo Banchero, not Banchero, Banchero. He said that it's pronounced Banchero many times. I keep on forgetting that. And this also will be an article on my Patreon. You can go check it out. It will be free. I'm not going to put it like behind a paywall or anything like that. If you don't know, I did launch a Patreon. I'm going to be doing like early access kind of stuff over there for the basketball film essay channel. So if you want early access to my basketball film essays, you can go check that out. I'm also going to be releasing articles as well over there relating to those basketball film essays. So if you're interested in stuff like that, go check that out. If you want to go support me in another way other than just being a subscriber on YouTube, I would really appreciate that. But to get into Paolo Banchero, he's somebody that I've obviously been very interested in really since around his junior year of high school, I would say. That's around the time that I really started taking him seriously as a prospect. And the thing I've noticed with Paolo Banchero is, and this, I don't know if I'm going to do it for the YouTube title, but I'm definitely going to be doing it for the article title for Patreon, is it's just too easy for him. That's the best way I can describe Paolo Banchero, and I'll explain why throughout the article. But to start with who Paolo Banchero is, Paolo Banchero was born on November 12th of 2002. To me, I view him as a big forward hybrid, meaning that he's someone that kind of floats between the power forward and center position. And is a bit of a hybrid between those two. You can play him at both spots, in my opinion. He is 6'10". He weighs 240 pounds with a +1 wingspan. He played his high school at Odeya. He went to college at Duke. His high school rankings, he was ranked 3rd by ESPN, ranked 2nd by Rivals, and 2nd by 24/7 Sports. For my personal way too early draft rankings, I have him ranked 1st overall. And positionally, he would then be 1st as well, considering, again, he was 1st in my overall, so position kind of goes hand in hand. Regardless of class, I believe he's the 2nd best high school and overall prospect, regardless of class, and that is, his draft class through, 2023 for recruiting. So, 2nd overall, I think the only one that's probably better is Victor Wembanyama right now. The biggest indicators with Paolo Banchero is his frame and his movement skills. I think it's a very, very combination. We'll touch on that throughout this, podcast style video. His feel for the game, another thing we'll talk on, and his offensive versatility. Those are the 3 biggest indicators I have when it comes to his game. When it comes to my first impressions of Paolo Banchero, I'll be honest with you guys, I was a bit skeptical the first time I was told about Paolo. The big reason why is when I was first told about him, I was told that he was a big with guard skills. Something that I kind of used to roll my eyes at a lot, given how overused that term was, especially back in 2019, which was around the time I really started hearing his name a lot. I've seen a fair share of prospects that have been labeled as these quote-unquote guards, like bigs, that have these guard-like skills at these center-type frames that just haven't panned out. Look at the Bulls and the Don Makers of the world. McCurry Makers, another example of this as well. However, in recent years, I have become a lot more open to the idea of bigs with guard-like skills because it's really starting to become a norm among the top 2 big prospects in high school and college. I would say Paolo Banchero is one of the first that made me realize the direction basketball was heading towards for power forwards and centers. Evan Mobley is another name that stands out. Guys like that. Chet Holmgren in the next class, Victor Wembanyama. These guys are really the direction that the bigs are heading in, and Paolo is definitely a part of that group. And I think he might even lead the pack in that group of new age big prospects. The big standouts with Paolo Banchero, for me, are his correlation between frame and skill set. When you look at Paolo Banchero's skill set, between the handle, shot creating indicators, passing, and shooting potential, usually that kind of skill set for a big prospect translates to a wiry frame. Like I mentioned, in the last section, Evan Mobley, Chet Holmgren, Victor Wembanyama, another name that does stand out, Jabari Smith. They're these big leg prospects that have perimeter indicators, but their frames still need to be filled out. However, Paolo Banchero is different from those other prospects in the sense that he's built like a tank. He was listed at 6 feet 9 inches tall and 235 pounds for a majority of his high school career. And based on recent reports and just looking at pictures of him at Duke, he looks like a legit 6'10 and likely around 240 to 250 pounds. Usually when it comes to big prospects that have Paolo's frame at the high school level, they are very dominant post-scoring bruisers that can be best described as quote-unquote developing face-up games. Vernon Carey Jr. and Isaiah Stewart are two big examples in recent memory that come to mind at the high school level that had these big frames that are kind of similar to what Paolo has. Although it might not be exactly the same, I do think it's something that is similar. However, Paolo is different from those prospects in the sense that his frame and skill set just don't correlate the way history has shown with big prospects. This probably is the biggest thing that just makes him so interesting, at least for me. When it comes to his offense, it was heavily implied in the last section that Paolo does have legit perimeter skills. He's comfortable handling the rock for a big man. It's not an elite handle in general. Speaking like, he's an elite handle in general. It's not like he's Kevin Durant out there. But for a big prospect, it's well above average. He seems comfortable creating his own shot off the dribble, mostly from the mid-range area from what I've seen. But he can step out and hit a three-pointer every once in a while. I definitely think that's something he will need to work on. But there definitely is promising signs though. Similar to Evan Mobley, you don't quite see it in the production yet, but you definitely see it with indicators just watching him play. So I do think he can develop a three-point shot over time, especially considering how good he is in the mid-range already. At the very least, he fits the baseline of a shooter where you can't leave him open. And I would say he's even better than that label. His combination of handle and shooting ability for a big man is good enough to create his own shot against other bigs. At the very least, he's a very good passer that has a knack for finding open teammates off cuts or open on the perimeter, and he doesn't force the issue that much either. I wouldn't say he's mistake-free. He does tend to settle for jumpers from time to time to show his perimeter game a bit too much. However, compared to other prospects of the same age, he's much further along than most in this regard. He's capable as a post scorer and he can catch lobs, typical big man stuff, but his perimeter skills are what really makes him a top-tier prospect. He's an absolute mismatch at the high school level, something that I do think will translate to college as well. It's just due to the fact, I'm sorry I stuttered, it's due to the fact that he's just too skilled for bigs to handle, and he's too strong for most guards or wings to handle. Having a big man that can attack off the dribble, create for himself and others, out-physical defenders, and hit jump shots is a dream big man prospect. Something that you would think was only possible in 2K. But we're here right now, and this is a real prospect, which is scary to think about. But we just can't talk about offense, you gotta talk about the defense as well. Which I will say, the defense was a very interesting study, to say the least. During his time at Odeya, he didn't really seem to try on defense. This is something that I will expand on in the next section as well. However, due to his time on the EYBL circuit, I do think that there are encouraging factors. He did give more effort on EYBL, just because he was playing better competition. However, regardless what kind of effort he gives on defense, I still think he's a high feel for the game on defense. He's someone, that can have his struggles defending guards on, switches. Some quick wings he'll struggle with as well. However, I do think he more than holds his own. I think Paolo has a chance to develop into a very good defensive player down the line. It was kind of hard to understand what he could do on defense at times just due to the fact that he really didn't have to try because he really didn't go up against opponents at Odeya that, were on his level. Like, and that's also probably true for EYBL to a certain extent, but you did see more effort given on EYBL compared to Odeya. I think his defense isn't great yet, but it's far from something I would put in his weakness section, because I do think that there are very good indicators. I think he has a high feel. And I think once he starts playing like competition that's on his level, which he probably will see in college, I think he's going to be like just more skilled and too big for a lot of college, but there are going to be players that can handle him. I definitely think that's when we'll start seeing the defensive effort go up a bit more. But the final real section of this that I want to talk about is, and this is the title for the article, it's just too easy. That's the thing with Paolo Banchero. Oh my god, I'm gonna mess that up forever. You know how it is. It's something you're gonna hear throughout the cycle, trust me. But it is just too easy for him. Overall, when you watch him play, you're like, oh my, this is just too easy. Like I mentioned earlier, he's just a complete mismatch. Too skilled for bigs to handle, too strong for wings and guards to handle. And it was evident when watching him play because he just looked bored. He's not the first and he won't be the only big prospect to go through something like this, or really prospect in general to go through something like this. Evan Mobley, Anthony Edwards, and DeAndre are like three big names that come to mind of prospects at the high school level that it got to a certain point, they just looked bored by the time they were seniors. And that's because the game is just too easy for these kind of prospects. Not only do these prospects have physical advantages over their, inferior high school competition, they also have a skill advantage as well. You'll get Evan Mobley to a somewhat lesser extent because I do think he had trouble against, some of the more physical bigs in high school. But for the most part, there weren't many players that had his skill set at 7 feet tall. It was very easy for him. By the time Anthony Edwards was 17 years old, he would have been the most physically gifted shooting guard in the NBA, let alone what he was in high school. DeAndre Ayton was built like peak Dwight Howard in high school, so good, and he had the skill set as well, so it was just too easy for him. And it's, again, something you'll notice with big man prospects because there aren't many, players in high school that match that kind of physicality that the top big men prospects have. And Paolo Banchero, he's no different because of the outlier thing, because of the outlier skill set. But what makes me encouraged, though, despite it being quote-unquote boring for him at the high school level, is that he's working on elevating his game. You can tell, because he's improved in other aspects throughout the years of watching him play. Because really, all he had to do at the high school level was just be a dominant post-up guy. Because who was going to stop him at the high school level? Let's be real here. But when you have a prospect that could easily just do that, and this is something I believe with Scotty Barnes, who had such a big physical advantage when he was in middle school, but he developed as a passer, he developed as a defender, stuff like that. It's why I'm encouraged by Scotty Barnes, and it's why I'm encouraged by Paolo Banchero. Because of the fact that, and again, I said his name wrong again, but because of the fact that you look at Paolo Banchero and you say, okay, he could just easily dominate by backing down his opponents, but he's developing skills. That tells me he wants to be great. Expanding on the shooting, expanding on the handle, expanding on shot creating, expanding on passing, expanding even on defense a little bit. The fact that he's doing those things is just so encouraging to me. He's shown great improvement with his handle over the years. All the stuff that I mentioned a few seconds ago as well. I don't know why I was almost about to repeat myself. But, it just shows me that, I could easily just dominate, but I want to get better because I know the next level it's going to get harder. And having that mindset, at least that's what I think his mindset is. I don't know him personally, but based off the improvements that he made, I believe that's what his mindset is. Having those kind of improvements, I think eventually it will pay off for him. Now, I do have some way too early projections for Paolo Banchero. I do think that, again, emphasis on way too early. I do have a ceiling, for draft range, key areas that he's good at, and swing factor. Those are my final parts I want to talk about. So my way too early ceiling for him is a versatile All-NBA big wing hybrid. You know, somebody that is very versatile on offense, can do a bunch of things as a passer and a scorer on offense. I'm not going to make any NBA comparisons because I think NBA comparisons are dumb, especially since we haven't seen him in college yet. I think it's even dumb to make a projection, but I added it, so we're just going to go through with it. His floor is skilled rotational big. I definitely think he's a high floor as a prospect. I think that I just find it very hard, even though we haven't seen him in college yet, I just find it very hard to believe that, you know, at Duke, he won't be good, at least. Like, if he's, like, not good at Duke, like, I would be shocked. Like, I think he's going to be great at Duke, but if he's not at least good, it would shock me, because I think he's that good. But in the NBA, even as a, like, prospect, I think it's a high floor. Like, it would shock me if he failed to reach the NBA and failed, like, completely in the NBA. I definitely think that this is somebody that, at the worst, will be like a rotation kind of guy. His draft range for me, top 5, easy top 5, number 1 prospect. I take him first overall. So we'll see how that goes. Again, key areas, that frame and the strength that he has, like 6'10", 240 pounds, the perimeter scoring skills that he shows, and the flashes he shows there. His feel for the game on defense and as a passer as well. I'm very encouraged by that. Swing factors, could be a bit more assertive on defense. I want to see how he reacts to playing in the ACC, which is one of the tougher conferences in college basketball, if not the toughest college basketball conference. And just doing more of the big man stuff. That's something I do want to see him do more. I think he's very good. I do. But, you know, the perimeter stuff's great, but, you know, leaning a bit into the big man stuff, because you can lean into the big man stuff. Like, look, I'm not saying he's not Joel Embiid. Let's get that out of the way. But look at Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. So he's not either Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic. I'm going to repeat that as many times as I can, because I know someone's going to say, oh, you're saying he's Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid. But, like, okay, he's not either of them. But with those two guys, you look at them and you watch them play. And they had the perimeter goals. Like, Jokic is this great passer. He can, you know, great shots. He can shoot. He can do all types of stuff like that. Joel Embiid can shoot. He can, you know, attack in the mid-range. He can handle the basketball pretty well. I think it's one of the more underrated parts of his game. But they still lean into the big man part. They still post up. They still run pick and rolls. They still do stuff like that. And I think if Paolo Banchero leans more into that as well, you know, I think it's going to work out for him. I like Paolo Banchero a lot. That's the end of this one. This is one of the longer videos. Again, sorry, there's going to be stutters. There's going to be mess ups. One take. That's the goal, always. But yeah, you can go check out the article on the Patreon if this was a bit confusing for you. Excuse me. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Subscribe if you're new. If you like these podcast style videos, if you like videos about the draft, go subscribe to the Basketball Film Essay channel. If you like videos like that, I have a few in the works that should be out by the time I get back from Vegas. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Have a nice day.